Can avoidants heal and become securely attached? Can they become good partners? If you've dealt with an avoidant, that can seem almost impossible, but it's not impossible. There are plenty of avoidants that actually work on themselves, do the difficult self-reflection, and actually become more secure, better partners. First, it requires the avoidant to be willing to do the work. They have to want it badly enough to get to the point where they're willing to actually do the difficult self-reflection and come out the other side. They have to be at the point in their lives where they are willing to commit to it. This most often means that they've hit rock bottom. That means that the consequences of their actions became so painful that the pain of self-reflection is not as great as the pain of the consequences of their actions. That said, they can do the work. And there are multiple steps to helping an avoidant heal. First, getting to the root of where their avoidant attachment comes from. Childhood emotional neglect. Was it abandonment? When this person really gets to the core of it, it helps them understand themselves, and it helps them understand that their attachment wounds were not their fault. The second step is ending the self-deprecation. Avoidants tend to self-deprecate quite a bit. They tell themselves that they're bad people, they're defective, and they have very negative thought patterns. It's very important to work on these thought patterns. A great exercise is for the avoidant to actually take a pen and paper and write down good qualities about themselves, things that they know to be true. Write this down once a day, every day. Pump the brakes when they start self-deprecating. Learning to love themselves and appreciate the good qualities about them. The human mind learns in repetition, so the more you repeat something, the more it sinks in. So the more they tell themselves that they are okay, that they are lovable, the more they'll believe it. Therapy is also a very important aspect. The avoidant should see a licensed psychotherapist that understands attachment theory. This is a very key part of healing. Now, the avoidant also needs to learn to hold and enforce boundaries. Just like anxious attachers, avoidants struggle with boundaries because they struggle to communicate their boundaries out of fear. They fear that if they assert their boundaries, they're going to get rejected, they're going to get abandoned. So they don't communicate. And they stay silent on what their wants and needs are until it gets to a breaking point when they can abruptly leave a relationship. Once the avoidant learns to get in touch with what their own wants and needs are and can get to the point where they can hold and enforce boundaries, relationships actually become a lot less scary to the avoidant because they can learn to trust themselves to actually stand up for their own wants and needs. And it's very important for the avoidant to learn to become a responsive person, not a reactive. When they shut down and create distance, they're actually engaging in an emotional reactive behavior. Reactions come from the emotional brain, the amygdala. And when you are reacting, you're allowing that part of your brain to dictate your behavior. Responses come from the prefrontal cortex. That's the logical, rational center of the brain. They're informed by emotions, but your emotions are not the sole arbiter of your behaviors. So learning to use that prefrontal cortex and make responsive decisions when they're emotionally triggered is key. Again, it helps them navigate stressful situations with confidence, which reduces relationship anxiety. A simple way is just to ask yourself when you're triggered, how do I respond to this situation rather than react to it? It's like turning on a light switch in your brain. And yes, you still feel your emotions, but it's a lot easier to come up with a response. Usually the secure, healthy response is actually quite obvious. For example, if they feel triggered and their tendency to shut down and withdraw, the response may be to clearly and directly communicate their feelings. It won't feel comfortable, it won't feel natural, it will feel outside of their comfort zone. That said, repetition makes it easier. The more you repeat something, the more automatic it becomes and the easier it gets. Fake it till you make it is really true. There was a big study on this back in the 1970s that proved scientifically that a change in behavior results in a change in mood and emotions. So in other words, if you force yourself to behave like a securely attached person on the outside, eventually your inside will catch up and you'll start to feel secure as well. So a consistent change in behavior, forcing themselves outside of their comfort zone and repeating that behavior will help them get to the point where secure behaviors like communication become more and more natural to them. In a nutshell, they absolutely can change, and they often do. The thing is, they have to want it. You can't force this person to change. Just because you want them to change doesn't mean they will, because if they don't want it themselves, they're not going to do the work. Now, if they want it, they absolutely can. And I see it all the time, but it has to come from within them.